Senator Farley,
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise a point of personal privilege comments.
please proceed.
Thank you. Members, you may remember on opening day, I rose and offered some of my remembrances in honor of the 7th anniversary of the Tucson shootings. Here we are again, not long afterwards, in the wake of another shooting, this time in a school, with kids gunned down in their hallways. I remember each of the 4 years that my daughter attended Tucson High, there was at least one instance in which I got a terrified text from her in her classroom saying that they were on lockdown. In one case, I remember her texting a picture of them having pushed the desks against the doors, so whatever shooter may have been walking through the hallways wouldn't be able to get into their classroom. As a parent, I understand what those parents are going through in Florida. Luckily, in my case, there was no actual shooter. It was a false alarm. In any of those cases, I can only imagine the horror of what it would be to be a parent in the situation. I was in Florida to find out it wasn't a false alarm. It was true. Reducing gun violence is not some nebulous idea outside of reality. It's entirely realistic and concretely attainable, if only we have the political courage and the moral clarity to act. And I do believe that it is possible to act in a bipartisan way. None of us, R or D, want these horrors to continue. There are Republican parents, Democratic parents, both in Florida and at every school where this happens all the time when you get this text from your kid in lockdown. We cannot allow this to continue. It's statistically proven that requiring criminal background checks for all gun sales is the most effective policy we can enact to keep guns out of the hands of dangerous people and save lives. If you need proof, here it is. Missouri repealed its background check law in 2007 and saw its gun homicides jump by 25%. Its share of crime guns recovered in state grew by 25%. And its share of crime guns recovered within 2 years of their original sale doubled, which is a key indicator of crime gun trafficking. On the other hand, when Connecticut passed background checks for all handgun sales, its gun homicide rate dropped by 40%, and gun suicides fell by 15%. These are real lives saved by requiring background checks for all gun sales, including private sales, which my bill, SCR 1015, would do if it had been given a hearing. That's a real opportunity that's been missed for us to save the lives of Arizonans with a simple vote of the legislature, and in this case, a vote of the people. But we haven't taken it. Why? Are we afraid that public sentiment would be against us? That's simply not the case. 93% of gun owners support requiring a background check for all gun sales. And 94% of Republicans support requiring a background check for all gun sales. So what are we afraid of? Are we afraid of the gun lobby and the millions it will spend in our elections? Can any of us be thinking more about getting reelected than saving lives? I don't believe that. Friends, regardless of political risk, we need to remember why we're here, to make decisions that serve the greater good of Arizona. Imagine if we could make it as hard as possible for criminals and the identifiably dangerous individuals to get their hands on guns. Imagine if we could keep them from killing our fellow Arizonans. We don't need to imagine it. We need to do it. For the greater good, for the people of Arizona, and for our children, whose lives and futures are at the greatest risk, we must act. None of us should ever get that text, that terrified text from our kid inside school. None of us should be reading about the horror of these mass shootings again in our schools or anywhere else. We have the tools. We've chosen not to use them. I ask you to reconsider and figure out a way we can work together to have that conversation and make this happen. Thank you.